Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Personal Transformation Experience podcast. Today, we are talking about the desire for belonging, for acceptance, and for connection. And I'm going to start out today with a quote from Rebecca Randall, Templeton.org, from February, titled "The Need to Belong." The need to belong is a universal and defining feature of being human. When people feel welcomed, respected, and accepted, they can thrive in challenging circumstances. On the flip side, feeling like an outsider or an outcast can be psychologically crippling. And I know for you, doing this podcast today, Maureen, was you used the word triggering.
Yeah.
What about talking about this today, this needing to be accepted and being connected is triggering for you?
Well, I think because I've never actually felt like I belonged or always had a hard time connecting with other people, feeling like I belonged to my own family, connecting with people in my family and other people. So I think that's, I did a lot of reflection about it because I got really uncomfortable about thinking about it. Thinking about how I never really felt like I belonged.
But what is it about whether it's your family or anyone else, for you, like what is it about what people said or what they did that contributed to you feeling like an outsider or an outcast?
So I was kind of, always felt like I was told I was too sensitive about things, like I was always teased and made fun of. And so I think that made me really feel like, every time if I got upset, I was too sensitive. And then I'm like, laughing along, but I'm the butt of the joke. Like I didn't like it. It made me upset. I almost felt like I couldn't be who I wanted to be, or nobody would accept me for me. Like if I behaved in my authentic self, then I wasn't being accepted. We don't like this part of you. So, I had to like kind of suck it up and not let anybody know how I felt. And that was frustrating for me. And I felt like I didn't belong and I didn't feel accepted at all. I just felt like I was the butt of the joke and I didn't appreciate it. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough place to be.
Yeah.
To one, be on the receiving end of some of that treatment, and then two, feeling that way about how you're being treated. And another quote that I love that I had found from this lady, Kendra Cherry, which was published in Very Well Mind recently, said a sense of belonging involves more than being acquainted with other people, because a family member is an acquaintance, right? It's kind of forced upon us. Mm-hmm. But this sense of belonging is centered on gaining acceptance, attention, and support from members of the group, as well as providing the same attention to other members. So what I hear you're describing is that you didn't feel supported.
I didn't feel supported, and the attention I got, I didn't want.
Unwanted or negative attention.
Negative attention.
Yeah.
And so I never, so I grew up as an adult, never wanting it to be in the spotlight, not wanting any attention. And
it makes sense.
Yeah. Just kind of avoiding doing anything socially because I didn't want the attention. I didn't feel like I can connect well with people. And when I did try to connect, I kind of,
too much risk.
It was a lot of risk.
That's
and
what
I felt
hear.
awkward.
Too much risk.
Yeah.
And we talked several weeks ago about the brain's always trying to predict an outcome, the future for us, or a situation we're in, and it's using past experience. So for you, your brain is predicting, oh, here comes another negative attention episode. Let's steer clear of it.
Let's steer clear of it. Exactly. So, and I think, a lot of the things that I did was avoidance for many, many years. And then I had my daughter and I felt more connected when I had her. And then when we met, I felt more connected. But I think a lot of that was coinciding with the fact that I was doing meditation and a lot of work on myself during that time and connecting with myself, which allowed me to have more authentic and real experiences and connecting more strongly with people that I wanted to connect with. And I was making the choices to connect with people, not letting intentional connections instead of letting people choose me
Right.
and me just going along with it,
Yeah.
I chose them to connect with. So, and that's a powerful thing when you choose who you want to connect with and how you want to connect with
That's
them.
so interesting because you had a friend when we lived in New York, and this goes back 10 years or more, that I think chose you. And they were, you were getting a lot of attention, but it was not one. They were calling you all the time and mostly one-sided, talking about problems they were having
Yeah.
or whatever. So you were getting plenty of attention and plenty of connection,
Yeah.
but it wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah.
But I think now looking back on it, you were craving connection so much you were willing to entertain this relationship
Right.
longer than you might today, I think, because you didn't have a good sense of connection with other people. And so,
Yeah. And interestingly, though, I kind of felt like, why am I having such a hard time connecting? Like, why can't I find a good connection with somebody? And I thought it was me. You know, I always put it back on myself that I just don't know how to connect. I don't know how to have a good friend. I don't know how to be a good friend. I don't know how to be, you know, a good sibling. I just don't know, you know, and I just can't connect with others in that way. And so I, you know, just separated myself again, thinking I don't feel good about this. I just didn't feel good about it. So I went back inside myself, and that's when I started realizing I need to make more intentional connections for myself. But it all begins with you.
Yeah.
So it's an inside job, right? And we just listened to Thich Nhat Hanh, and he said, the way is in. The way to connection is in. It's inside yourself. So when you can connect with yourself in an authentic way where you're connected to your body, your feelings, your emotions, you are your home. You are your home. It's not out there. Home is not in another person. Nobody else can complete you. You are already complete. You have everything you need. And so when you can connect with yourself in that way, you're better able to connect with others. When your cup is full and you feel connected to yourself,
right.
you can connect with others in a more strong and powerful way that's more meaningful. So I think that's super important. And that's what I learned from all that stuff.
And just to expand a little bit on this quote, because I think he was talking about if you have this feeling of loneliness, he said the way out of that feeling is
the way in. That's right. That's what he said.
So I thought that was very profound and powerful, the way he put that. You know, my experiences with looking for acceptance, connection, and belonging came through a very insulated religion that I was brought into by my parents and continued with into very early adulthood. But this group gave me everything that I felt I didn't have inside, which was certainty about the future, certainty about how I should behave, how I should think, how I should dress, how I should interact with people, because that all arose from this chaotic and ever-changing childhood where I had adults that I couldn't depend on the adults staying in my life. I mean, there were people that were coming in and out of our household continuously. And also I didn't know how my adults were going to show up from one day to the next. So I really craved this certainty and the structure and this routine. I didn't have any of that. So for me, finding my tribe meant finding a group of people who all desired the same thing, which was this desire for structure and routine. And because I couldn't build that within myself, I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to build a structure because I had no model for it. And so I used this group to kind of fill my cup, as it were, because it took me many years to figure out how to fill that cup myself. And that's very difficult for anyone, is what are the strategies right then to learning how to fill your own cup?
Yeah, I think when someone feels lost and lonely and they don't know to go inside themselves and connect with themselves. They haven't learned that. It's a skill. It doesn't come naturally. It's not
Or maybe
innate.
you were told not to do that.
Not to do that, right? It's outside of yourself. This presents itself to you, it seems like, oh, this is everything I've been looking for.
That's exactly what I said to myself.
Yeah,
reading my mind.
It's everything I've been looking for.
That is what I said to myself.
When you have a set of beliefs, behaviors, and belonging,
Yep.
which
So what religion provides.
is what religion provides. it's easy to just go along with that and sort of put yourself on autopilot. You don't have to. You sort of, okay, if I follow this structure, or what everybody else is doing, I could just go along with this sort of group, and or herd, and you just follow along with it, and you don't have to think about anything else because you belong. But I don't, I wonder, like, what is the motivation or inspiration to seek the answers from inside yourself? Like, where do you find your own set of values and behaviors, rather than
that wasn't emphasized at all.
Rather than adopting something else to connect.
I was discouraged from doing that.
Yeah. So this is where, you have your own set of values and behaviors that you've gotten from connecting with yourself, your authentic self. Then you can find others. You can choose and be more intentional about who you want to connect with based on what you believe is true to who you are, rather than what a group of another group believes is true, and you just adopt those. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess some people really, that's something that they really need in their life, and it's easier for them. And if that works, that works.
Yeah.
But it never really worked for me. So I needed something a little more stronger. I needed to find people that I could connect with myself from my authentic self, from where I believed. I never felt comfortable. I always felt like that's probably why I couldn't connect well with other people, because I didn't feel like I could connect. I was trying to, like, swim upstream, and go against the grain and do something that my body was like, this doesn't feel right. My mind was like, well, I mean, I don't have anything else, right? So
yeah, it's so interesting. But I think about our kids today, adolescents, young adults today, and they don't have this sense of connection with their self, and they're connecting with groups online, right? Whether it's TikTok or Facebook or whatever it is that they get into, and then they adopt the styles, the conversation, the beliefs of other people. I mean, this happens to adults too.
Yeah.
Right? Those are political movements happen out of that and so forth, and all these things, because people don't have a good sense of connection with themselves, so they...
Well, they're developing. So when you're young, you have this developing mind. They're developing their own senses of value, and they're learning what work, how they want to think about themselves and how they want to think about the world around them. And then they see something online. They're like, oh, this sounds really interesting. Like, I connect with this. And then all they do then is find other things that validate that idea.
Confirmation bias
that validates that idea. And now they're off connecting in a way that really may not represent who they truly are, but they got kind of influenced and hauled away in a different direction. And it may not be safe, right? Or it didn't really give them the opportunity to go inside themselves. They're not finding who they are, going inside and, and checking in with themselves. They're finding who they are from the like going outside themselves. And that's not really authentic connection. I don't believe that's authentic connection.
Like, now I see a visual in my head about this, that people then, if they're not connected with themselves, they're like a boat out in the middle of an ocean without an anchor, right?
Yeah.
Because if the boat's anchored, then no matter what happens, wind, rain, storms, the boat's pretty much going to stay in the same general location. It's not going to drift around. At worst, a boat with no anchor, they're going to try and go to any port in a storm. I think you've heard that expression before.
Yeah.
I mean, grounding, it's the same analogy.
Yeah.
You're going to be very susceptible to the external environment if you don't have connection with yourself.
Right.
So I think this is really important, because, and no matter what age you are, but especially when you're a developing brain, developing mind, you're going to have less a sense of, your own values and beliefs and so forth. So you're going to be more susceptible to things coming along. And for me, I was already exposed to this religious group since I was 3 years old. And, when I was a teenager, again, going back to all the chaos and uncertainty in my life, I was craving something solid. I was craving some port, right? So, when you're in distress, any port in a storm will do. And for me, that's what it was. But I didn't have all the choices today that kids have to fall into things.
Right.
And the internet now presents a wide array of options to find a port in a storm, and it may not be the best port, but if you're not anchored
Right.
to your own strong core beliefs, you're going to be tossed around.
Yeah, it's when you can connect within yourself and you find that connection and you are your own home and you recognize that, it builds a sense of confidence and grounding so that you can pass by these ports, right? You could steer your own ship. You're not just floating along aimlessly,
Right.
searching for whatever port you can hang on to or you can grasp onto,
Right.
So I think that that's super important, especially for young adults when they're developing their sense of values.
Yeah, and all is tied to your sense of purpose. And if you don't, I remember your brother saying that one year, if kids don't have a sense of purpose, right, in their life, they're going to have a really hard time. But you can't have a sense of purpose unless you have a sense of connection with yourself and know what it is that you stand for as an individual, right?
Yeah.
What's important to you, right? Because if you know what you stand for, then you're gonna find the right friends. You're gonna find the right people in your life. You're gonna attract the right people in your life because you know what you stand for.
Well, yeah, that's true. But even if you're not sure yet, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I really didn't know what I stood for, but I was connecting with myself almost every day, and not even like now I think back. I mean, exercise was always my go-to to deal with life. Right. I mean, the benefits were great because I was exercising, but I connected with my body in that way. So I always went inside myself and connected with myself through exercise. And I do it now through, with what I don't run, but I lift heavy weights, and that helps keep me grounded and connects with my body. And that helps me to connect with myself. And when I'm done, I can connect with others in a more meaningful and powerful way, because I am so connected to myself. And I think that that's what kind of always kept me from backing away from connections that weren't right for me. I mean, and also I wasn't choosing them. I wasn't intentional back then.
Right.
I would let them choose me because, I don't really understand why. I have some work to do there, but I did.
We all do.
Yeah. So, and that's, to me, that's super important to do because... and find, now I meditate also, and that helps. That has helped a lot. But yeah, I think being intentional and conscious and not being on autopilot, and just always kind of knowing what you're doing in any moment.
And that's a good segue, right, to kind of talk about how we find connection and belonging today. And what I hear you talking about is mindfulness a little bit. And so we've been practicing mindfulness and meditation now for almost 10 years, but after moving to the Charlotte area 7 years ago, we kind of found, hey, it's difficult. It's a big change from New York. Who's our tribe, right? Where do we feel a sense of belonging and connection? And, about 3 years ago, we found this meditation group in Charlotte, meets weekly. And we meditate for 30 minutes, and then we hear one of the leaders give a talk for 30 minutes. It's called the Dharma Talk, and really focusing around these teachings around the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And, first of all, for those not familiar with it, the Four Noble Truths, the first one is, there is suffering.
There is suffering, yeah.
And the cause of suffering comes from our, holding on to things or clinging to things that we don't want to let go of, or trying to avoid or avert things that we don't want in our lives, or pushing things away. And that of course, right, not accepting where we are in any given moment is going to create suffering. And but there is an end to that suffering, and the end of that suffering is this Eightfold Path, which I have found very beneficial in my life. I mean, I first was exposed to these teachings, well over 30 years ago now, and and this is not to knock any other belief system, because we're the meditation group we're part of. There's many different people there that practice different faiths, Christian faiths, beliefs, and that this is not in conflict with any of that. I find it very supportive.
Yeah, it's not religious.
But the thing is, since we've found this group, we have now made good friends in this group that I don't think I've had this type of friendship in a long time. And but it's not only do we accept where we are in any given moment, but the members of the group are accepting each other where they are.
Yeah.
And very supportive and very, there's no, we're not getting criticized. We're not being judged. I don't feel like we're being judged.
No,
so.
it's not, it's a no judgment zone. And I think it's really important because everybody connects with themselves very strongly, like through meditation and whatever other practices they have. They're always connecting with themselves, which allows them to be able to have connections with others in that way and fill their cup up, right? So how do you fill your cup? How do you keep yourself at 100%? What do you do to, when your life gets, life happens and you have, like I work with moms who have children, toddlers who, are just diagnosed and really struggling and they're overwhelmed. And, one of my first questions is, what are you doing? What kind of self-care?
What are you doing to fill your cup?
Fill your cup, what kind of, because they're, they're overwhelmed and they're at the edge of the rope, the end of the rope. They're just, emotional. They're not getting rest, and they're doing everything they can to keep up with their child, and it's difficult. And so I'll ask, what are you doing for self-care? You can go and get a pedicure or a massage or, but what are you doing to reconnect with yourself so that you can recharge your own batteries? Maybe you can do that through massage and pedicures and whatnot. But I'm one I need to work out. Like that's my connection with myself. I am very connected to my own body during that time. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a meditation. I don't even listen to music anymore. I just do my workout, follow whatever my trainer's telling me to do.
Yeah.
And I do it. And, I don't always want to do it, but I do it anyway. And I know that 15 minutes in, I'm going to feel amazing because I'm so glad I started it. And I didn't just, it's getting started is the whole thing. So you just take that first step, right?
No, absolutely. But, so there are many different ways to connect with yourself but you have to, it all depends on what you feed yourself too. But this, this physical, mental component. And I think somebody challenged us weeks ago on a podcast about this idea that there's 3 separate components to our daily living, right? Spiritual, mental, physical. We hear that a lot, but they can kind of all really be wrapped up together and be the same thing. Spiritual doesn't mean that you're religious necessarily. It can be, right? But it's a way, whatever helps you develop that connection with yourself, right? It can be working out. It can be eating healthy. It can be walking outside. It could be sitting outside in the sun.
Yeah.
So all of these things are all interconnected, right? I don't think that you can ignore your mind, right? The mental aspects of your health, right? Your mental health.
Yeah.
And only focus on your physical health, right? So it's kind of like a holistic approach, right? To being centered, to being grounded, to being connected with yourself. But like you said, it all starts there because you're not going to be able to connect well with others. I think I said in one podcast episode, you're not going to know who's best for you until you know you best. Right. So,
and you are your own home. You are home. Like you're home within yourself. You are home. Your home is not out there. Home is not with you. I don't know if I said this before, but home is not with you. It's home. Home is not an outside thing. It's
so
on,
you mean
inside.
I don't complete you?
No. No, I don't think anybody completes anybody.
No Jerry Maguire moment.
No Jerry Maguire. I mean, home is with you, but not. It's inside me, right? So because I've built the confidence in myself to know I'm anchored and I am home. And I have that connectedness with myself, I can connect with you more strongly as I can connect with my child more strongly and the people that I work with. And I have so much more to offer because I am so well connected with myself. I can't say that I'm like that every day, but most days I try to be, that's the intention. And it's the intention, when you're intentional about connecting with yourself, then you can be intentional about connecting with others.
Yeah, living with intention is definitely key.
Because it's an inside job. You have to connect with yourself first, and that's the most important thing.
Well, we appreciate you watching and listening to us today. I know that we are certainly curious with regard to our audience, how do you find acceptance, belonging, and connection? I just realized ABC. I didn't realize that was an acronym. But please let us know. We'd love to know. You can leave a comment in the video itself on YouTube, or come over to our Instagram page, Personal Transformation EXP. Feel free to private message us or comment there as well. We'd love for you to subscribe. Liking and subscribing to our show does encourage the YouTube algorithm to share it with other people that might find benefit from it.